Alright, a draft science video that will skirt whatever philosophy is in this nonsense. Anyway, this is supposed to be a response video to Hythloday, and Pyrrho just couldn't help lying some more. Yes, that's right, misparaphrasing my theory and maligning it by describing it in cartoonish ways. But anyway, so I'll play a little Feynman clip in here, and just to illustrate a smart person versus an idiot. Yeah. And Feynman was wrong, of course, but at least he was wrong as a smart person is wrong, not wrong like an asshole is wrong. Anyway, so I won't even get to the underlying philosophy here, which is something like, these people are theologists, and they're trying to dissect God. And so that's where it starts all wrong. And so they do this, I think, therefore I am. Like, the word think isn't already a complex concept. And what relevance would amming have, you know, if you didn't have an ego or some kind of who gives a shit about that one, or the feeling about it or something. And it's just so stupid, because obviously to think you'd probably have to do feelings first anyway. So then it would be what? I feel, therefore I am, and that's as far as you go. That's the only feeling you have is amness. You don't have any specific feelings about specific things. You don't see anything, you don't hear anything. So you think before you hear, you think before you see, you think before you feel gravity. I think the way consciousness would work is first you'd say, I feel gravity, yes, I feel orientation falling on me. I feel disoriented, which means there must be something called oriented. Oriented to what, I wonder? Well, anyway, it's just a stupid way to do philosophy. We don't enter the world this way. We don't acquire knowledge of reality this way. You know, this one thought at a time kind of crap. You know, you have to do a whole bunch of stuff before you can even do the thinking stuff. And so it's just such a silly... And they're doing it just so they can negate the existence of not only determinism but reality. Just make everything that means anything, anything that has a property, anything that would create an obligation, make it all go away. Because I don't want to hear about any of that, because I just want to do my amming. I'm an ammer. That's all it is. Such horse shit. So anyway, to the weak, lame, trivial philosophy and science of Pyrrho.
So, for example, Gary's case, he's made up this stuff about tons and stuff. Well,
okay, let's you know, this whole Einstein made up this stuff, bent space. Huygens made up Huygens. I don't know who made up dark matter, but yes, give him an whatever it is, Dumb and Dumber award. You know, Huygens, Heisenberg. We could just go on and on. It's all made. Newton made up this. You know, you could just do that to every single person who had a thought, because you can't have any legitimate, you know, intelligent thoughts. You just have to trivialize everyone else's. Yes. Fuck you.
Tons ought to have an extension.
Whatever that means, right? Tons ought to have an extension. Well, they do have properties. Polarization, and they go the speed of light. And there's a whole lot of them. Yeah. Yeah.
We see no phenomenon of that extension.
Okay, I don't know what that means again. We see no what consequences of their interaction with matter. Okay, so there's two kinds of tons. Matter tons, force tons. Doing the same thing. Ones do it in a trapped manner and ones do it in a free manner. Alright, that sounds sort of extensional.
Gary's making an intentional description of it.
I'm making an intentional description, whatever the fuck. This, again, more jargon. Yes, Gary has theorized. He has made a model, and the model seems to fit. And so Gary's explaining the model. Oh, what a silly thing to be doing.
And his idea is that if you follow good logic, it'll turn out real, and you'll find the extension.
It'll turn out real, and you'll find the extension, which doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, what does that mean? It'll turn out real. Oh, you mean it'll fit the evidence? Well, that it already does. What does turn out real mean? And you'll find what extension. Oh, you'll find out the fact that, oh, it causes everything, as pointed out in the theory itself, which is it is the source of gravity and magnetism, the strong force, and the nuclear forces, the weak force. Include electricity.
Intention in the real world, and your intention will, but that doesn't always work out.
Well, whatever that means, so I say it's ribbity-rubby.
It's so hot, but on the other hand, in science, there's a trick. It's like, well, no, we're explaining something that should have an extension. Eventually, we should be able to find that.
Yeah, whatever that is. Yeah, eventually you'll be able to find your golden unicorns. Right, just keep looking. So anyway, whatever this extension, we're all supposed to know what the fuck this magical extension shit is supposed to mean about how something becomes real because it becomes useful to Pyrrho. Apparently it's something to do with that. Pyrrho finds it useful, therefore it has a proper extension. Doesn't matter whether it's the truth or not. Such a crock of shit. Anyway, so around here he says some more drivel.
Might be. Given a random sample of phenomena, electrons and, grandmas and whatever, the intentional idea of a field would be able to pick out which ones should be called fields. Now, in Gary's case, he's trying to explain phenomena with these particles, but it's like, it's not working. I mean...
Says you. Yeah, so I'll just bury you with that statement. We can just play that again, right? It's not working because Pyrrho says so. Not because you have any evidence that it doesn't work.
Explain phenomena with these particles, but it's like, it's not working. I mean, it's...
Yeah, it's beat the crap out of your silly theories, and I've already shown the glaring flaws in your theories as rational mechanisms. And then I've shown how even in the simplest experiment, you people are compulsive liars and can't even describe the experiments correctly. Your axioms are way exaggerated, and so are your results. You're all just exaggeration and distortion. You're playing little 3-card Monte games with the truth to validate your silly unicorn theories, your stupid fucking religions.
So important to mathematics because...
Alright, there's no conflict with the mathematics, so let's go play the Feynman clip now, just to point that out. So, Richard Feynman basically is saying in this video, he's having a conversation about, well, look, we got these different ways of looking at things, we got these different theories, and what we're really seeking is a model. Because we have a model, we don't need to worry anymore, because it'll do the work for us.
But people are often unsatisfied without a mechanism, and I would like to describe one theory which has been invented.
So he said without a mechanism, what he's saying means there is model, without a model.
Among others, of the type that you might want, that this is the result of large numbers. And that's why it's mathematical. And
see, so he's basically saying, look, you have a nice model. It's based on, it's complicated because it's a lot of stuff, but it's a simple mechanism, so you can do the math on it easy.
I give this theory, perhaps you've thought of it yourself. Every once in a while, some student comes running you and he suddenly explains gravitation.
That's how good this thing is, right? They're just cliche about how, well, yeah, every once in a while we go with that push thing. And, well, we make sure we cram it down, we shove it down, we break it again, because we don't want to do that whole push idea, because that's just too logical.
Suppose that in the world, everywhere, there are flying through us at very high speed a lot of particles that come equally in all directions. They're just shooting by, shooting by, shooting by. And once in a while...
Oh, Pyrrho would say you're just being silly, Richard.
...I'll hit us in a bombardment. But we and the sun are practically transparent for them, nearly. But some hit, and so it's not completely transparent. Then look what would happen. If the sun is here, and the earth is here, then if the sun weren't here, there would be particles bombarding from all sides, giving little impulses by the rattle of these bang, bang, the few that hit, which would not shake the earth in any particular direction, because there is many coming from one side as the other, from top from bottom. However, when the sun is here, the particles which are coming in this direction are partly absorbed by the sun because some of them hit the sun and don't go through. Therefore, the number that are coming from this direction toward the Earth is less than the number that are coming from the other side, because here they...
Okay, so we'll play a little more of Pyrrho. So you're getting the idea, right? It's kind of mechanical and obvious. The chateau effect.
It's really hard to set up a mechanics, mathematically, where pressure leads to orbiting behavior. I mean, it's...
Alright, so let's understand. It's called mock gravity, and they use it just because it does it so simply. It does it so obviously. Okay, it does all of Einstein's math essentially in a simple mechanical way. You can see it, you can do it, you can measure it with a ruler, that kind of thing. It's so obvious in terms of the way things will be forced to move based on even a simple version of the theory. The theory only breaks, okay, when you take it outside of gravity, when you take a moving body and move it through this now created particle ether, then the theory breaks. But inside gravity it works really well.
With shadows and stuff. I mean, for all of that to line up just right, it's so depth.
It's not. It has nothing to do with line up just right. It's a simple replacement for both for Newton. Certainly, it does the r squared thing, which is the substance of gravity, and the two bodies are distinct and separate. Therefore, not complicated at all. You see how much shadow the one thing creates, and you see how much shadow the other thing creates. See, that's why it's a little better than Newton, because it separates the two shadows. Dumbass. Fucker. Stupid cunt.
They have no opposition from no sun there. And it's easy to see, after some mental effort, that the further the sun is away, the less in proportion of all of the particles are being taken out of the possible directions in which particles can come. So size appears smaller. And in fact, inversely is the square of the distance. So there will therefore be an impulse toward the sun on the Earth that's inversely as the square of the distance,
and more importantly, to be an impulse on the sun created by the Earth. The important part, yes.
The result of large numbers of very simple operations, just hit one after the other from all directions. And therefore the strangeness of the mathematical relation will be very much reduced because the fundamental operation is much simpler than calculating the inverse of the square of the distance. This machine does the calculating, these particles bouncing. Only trouble with it is that it doesn't work.
So that was a great punchline. And it doesn't work because he's a physicist who really doesn't really want to do physics all the time. You know, so he's going to do, this is where he does his raindrop theory. But I don't know whether there's a point in playing the debunk.
For other reasons. Every theory that you make...
Right, for other reasons.
...has to be analyzed against all the possible consequences and to see if it predicts anything else. And this predicts something else. If the Earth is moving this way, more particles will hit it from the front than from the back. If you're running in the rain, more rain hits you from the front of the face than in the back of the head because you're running into the rain. And so as the Earth is moving in this direction, it's running into the particles, rather, and running away from the ones that are chasing it from behind.
Right, so this is the extent of the debunk of Lesage gravity, which is, it's so trivial. You're saying, gee, that's it? That's as deep as they went? Anyway, so I'll give you a quick. It's more complex than what I'm describing, because yeah, you have to pay attention. It's physics. It's a little complicated in actual matter, but the basic game is that a material thing has 3 dimensions, and when it gains velocity, that is when that Earth is running into the raindrops, what's happening is these perpendicular dimensions get shorter or smaller as you gain. Okay, so whatever you gain in a direction, it's added on from these perpendicular dimensions. Your mass you get thinner. So essentially there's a lot less of you to hit. So now when you're going into the rain, you don't have your shoulders anymore, you don't have your chest, or you don't have some piece of you, and therefore now you have less friction. So there's less of you to hit in proportion to the velocity you've gained. So the more velocity you have, the less of you there is to hit. So you essentially are getting greasier as the friction gets stronger. You're getting thinner as the force gets, the holes get smaller, however you want to describe it. But in proportion to the obstacle you're encountering, you're losing less capacity to be hit. So it's like a target for an arrow or something, and you're moving it forward and back, and as you're just making the target smaller in proportion to how big the arrows get, that kind of thing. Yeah, so it all comes out the same in the end, and that's the basic function is happening to electrons and protons in terms of they're the ones doing this arrow exchange. But the truth is, it's the forces between them that are really mitigating the process, and that is the process meaning more force on one side going the direction of your velocity and less force moving perpendicularly or obviously opposite directions. So whoever's got the most force wins, kind of an argument in the end, and it will maintain its victory. The force will, unless it encounters, as Newton would say, an opposite and equal force in the opposite direction. So anyway, but Pyrrho can't do this. This requires paying attention, and he has no interest in having to pay attention to anything. He just debunks stuff casually and superficially because he's has no character and is a fucking troll.
Delicate and impossible. I'm not sure if it could be done, really, if you're trying to obey conservation of energy.
So again, I'm not sure. I didn't look into it. I don't know anything about it. So yeah, I don't know. So great. You're just such a a brilliant dissector. The way you get to the truth through your non-investigation. This is just some asshole on the street who shows up at trial and just goes, "He looks guilty to me."
I did stay on this one subject, but I didn't.
Yeah, no, you didn't. You spent half the video doing a silly metaphor for your, trying to contrast two ways of thinking, whatever it is. Pyrrho, I don't accept anything thinking that way. I don't have to accept anything thinking. I mean, clearly your ends are where you're going to end up with where you start with. The premises you start with are so weak and uncommitted. I'm a skeptic. That means in the end I'll always be able to evade the existence of anything I don't like because I'll just say, I'm just being a skeptic. So yeah, doesn't matter what kind of truth you throw at me, I can just dismiss it because it just that's one of those skeptical things. Sorry. Just so bogus. Alright, so I think that's all the physics that were in here. So yeah, I don't think there's anything I necessarily need to go further into. Again, there's nothing wrong with this. I have spent the last 5 years playing with this stuff and doing work, and the truth is you can understand why it's not an ether, because it's all an active force. Everything's made out of the speed of light bits, in a sense, and there's no conservation issues or friction issues, because there's 4 rules, maybe 4. Force doesn't interact with force, something that's confirmed in all investigation, except the magical Einstein ones of bending light, for which you have scant evidence. Anyway, yes, that's enough. It's just despicable characters. So the rest will be a philosophical video. But I mean, where's the philosophical depth here? The Hythloday is such a brain-dead piece of shit. He really just thinks that this is just atoms atoming, and the screwdriver, the scissors are just atoms atoming. Nothing has a property, and certainly nothing has a property that matters, in any kind of, it's a distinctively interesting property, like thinking or feeling. So, it's just so fucking goddamn infantile. That somebody could have a brain and waste it so catastrophically on such a nonsensical reductionist notion. I love reductionism, but there's absolutely no reason through reductionism to not recognize the difference between a praying mantis and a plastic bottle. Very different things. Very different properties. Okay. Till next time and such.